It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Yeah, a few people asking about permission structure. Yeah. That was a term. We just happened to play 3 audio cuts in a row last hour, and every audio cut had permission structure in it, including
Barry Weiss said it.
Weiss said it.
Yeah.
Abby Phillips said it, and then somebody else said it, whoever the other audio cut was. All 3 of them used the term permission structure, and we burst out laughing because that was something that Tim Walz came up with, that he was the permission structure for men to vote for Kamala Harris. That's where it all came from.
Right.
We just need to fully explain it because some people weren't sure. A few people said, I've just heard that term today when you guys just used it. No.
Yeah.
This all comes from Tim Walz doing it. I mean, we howled with laughter when he said he was the permission structure to basically, by talking in code about football and trucks, for men to vote for Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
So that's where that all comes from. Just have some background on that.
I just had to Google it. Obama promotes the term permission structure from May of 2013.
Wow. Well, maybe it wasn't so much the term as how Walz used it.
Yeah, well, Walz really kind of catapulted it because that went viral when he said it.
Yeah. Because
he's not been the permission structure for anything. This is from USA Today in May of 2013, May 3rd, 2013. The hot new term in Washington, permission structure.
Oh, God.
A term which has been used by marketing people, political scientists, and White House aides, went public when President Obama used it at a news conference this week.
I just don't remember that. I don't remember him using that term. He didn't use it all the time.
I don't remember it being a thing, but, things weren't, the viral sensation wasn't in 2013 what it is today, especially when you look at Barack Obama in 2013 was a very different political figure than Tim Walz in 2025. With his
the jazz hands.
Yeah, with Tim Walz and his jazz hands. It's I don't know. It's weird when they come up with these terms, because it sounds like what they're trying to do is talk over your head, talk like an insider. And politically, actually, you want to do the opposite, don't you? It's why you, let's say, grow a beard and go to Iowa.
Well,
Pete Buttigieg.
Well, no. What gets me about the term is it's as if there's this creation that this permission, there's a structure that gives people permission, that people aren't autonomous human beings and come up with ridiculous ideas themselves, that there must be a permission structure, a structure that permits you to say it, instead of the fact that, well, no, there is no permission structure. Permission structure. That person is just on the lunatic fringe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's.
Did you know?
What
happened to come up on YouTube yesterday?
What?
Tom Cochran from the band Red Rider.
Yeah.
Remember, and Lunatic Fringe.
Mm-hmm.
You know that song is about anti-Semitism?
Oh.
It was about the growing anti-Semitism that he felt because that song came out in 1981, but he felt it he felt that anti-Semitism was coming back in the late 1970s, And Lunatic Fringe is about anti-Semitism, denying the Holocaust. I never knew that until yesterday.
I didn't know
and it was completely an accident. It had come up. And it's such a great song when you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And he was talking about it. He said, yeah, because people told him, no, you don't want to do a song like this. People won't, they don't want to hear this kind of stuff, make it poppy.
Right.
And he said, the lesson I learned is, if you think you got a great song, no matter, don't pay attention to anybody, put it out.
Right.
Because the structure of that song is put together very well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You by the way,
it's a very cool sounding song.
Yeah, the style of that song from the beginning, keyboards of it.
Mm-hmm.
You believe there's a Lunatic Fringe out there. But I had no idea until yesterday. None. And it completely came up. I was on the Forbes site looking at stuff. Because the Senate was in session, the Judiciary Committee.
Right.
So I'm looking for audio cuts from that. And then I just sort of let it go. And, I look at so many videos that it just starts going in random shuffle.
Mm-hmm.
And next thing you know, I'm like, oh, Tom Cochran. Yeah, from Red Ryder, Lunatic Fringe. And it's about anti-Semitism. I had no idea. None.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
All right, very quickly, I got to get to this. Won't spend a lot of time on this, but the Noah Rothman, National Review, the Democrats' new strategy, pretend not to be Democrats, but it's not what you think. Democrat strategists in recent months approached officials at the party's main Senate super PAC to discuss the bank shot idea for flipping control of the Senate. The Bulwark's Lauren Egan reported this week. One of those ideas includes quietly backing independent candidates in traditionally Republican states who will align with the Democrats, like Bernie Sanders is an independent.
Right.
But he votes with Democrats. And the whole thing is, since they can't win with a D in front of it, then find people who will run as independents who will get support from the Democrats, but just have an I in front of their label and fool people into voting for the independent candidate instead of the Republican or Democrat, but the person will align with the Democrats.
Right.
They just can't do anything honestly, can they?
No, they can't.
They cannot have any intellectual honesty at all. And so that's by the way, the discussion's going on in liberal publications. They're the ones who are talking about it.
Yeah. Wow.
Now we've got to play this. You had mentioned it to me before about Pete Ducey's question
to
Karoline Leavitt yesterday on the auto pen, because this is just great.
I love it.
I mean, this is what's going to be when they do the hearings. They're going to go through all of this. What are the Democrats' response going to be? Trump's an anti-Semite? I mean, I'm trying to think about it.
I don't know where you go on this.
And I know you're saying, Gary, that's got nothing to do with the auto pen. We know.
Yeah, right.
We know
exactly.
that. It's like, no, they're just trying to throw stuff at the... We're talking about the auto pen. Trump's an anti-Semite.
Yeah.
No, he's not. And what does that have to do with this? But here it is as he talks about the auto pen and the actual signature style. Here we go.
Peter.
Thank you, Caroline. When you look at these last-minute Biden pardons, the big ones, Biden siblings, Fauci, January 6th committee.
That's right.
Most of the big ones have the same very neat signature. We would expect that probably to be the auto pen. There is one that looks different. It looks authentic. In fact, if you look at the last name, it almost looks like the president was having a hard time spelling his last name there. Is this White House of the opinion that the only pardon that would count is one that the president signed himself?
It's very interesting. Very interesting props. If you want to bring them to my office later so I can take a closer look, I would like to do that. The president is making a good point when he discusses the usage of the auto pen. Who was running the country for the past 4 years? Perhaps those documents were signed with the auto pen, something that I believe the Department of Justice is looking into. As you saw, Ed Martin made an announcement at the Department of Justice this morning to launch an investigation because the American people deserve answers.
Is there any concern that this president, who won the election on a promise to fix the economy and close the border, that focusing and scrutinizing these Biden pardons is looking into the past instead of looking forward?
I think in comparison to the amount of time this president has spent on securing the border, on fixing our economy, I just read out for you an entire list of economic accomplishments. Look at the border numbers. Look at the time and effort he's divulged into solving the global conflicts abroad. It pales in comparison, but it still, nevertheless, is a very important issue. And it was a huge issue that sent the president back to this White House. The Americans saw with their own eyes a mentally incompetent president, and they want answers for that, and the president believes they should have them.
There you go. Well, you win this one because it's the Democrats that brought it up.
Yeah, there's really no avoiding it now. But it's important to know when the auto pen was used and how it was used. It's important to know whether or not anyone without authority, presidential authority, used that pen. It's a very clear mission. And the American people need to know. Because his actions as president are still, some of them, are still in play right now.
Now, politically, it's still, I believe it's a winner because, substance-wise, of course it's a winner.
Sure.
Because you want to find out if there was a shadow government.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If the duly elected president was incompetent, could not run it, had lost his cognitive abilities to make any decisions, and the aides around him were actually making the decisions for him, which would be the biggest presidential scandal in American history. And as Jay Tapper said, yes, bigger than Watergate. We said that a long time ago. Yeah. Much bigger than Watergate. Politically, I believe it's a winner because it's a great and simple story to understand that could be a TV show.
Yeah.
Weekend at Biden's.
Yeah.
And I say that not to make a joke of it, but to show you how easily it gets into pop culture.
Right.
And once it gets into pop culture, it means it's extremely easy to understand. And that's why I said Weekend at Biden's. Okay. Weekend at Bernie's. I've actually never seen the movie. I've just seen the trailers of it. Was the guy's name Bernie? I don't even know.
I guess.
But whoever it was they were dragging around was dead, but they were, propping them up for his own purposes. And so right at that point, you've got the in. And this could be a television miniseries.
Yeah. Well, and when it's in pop culture, it means there's interest by everybody.
Everyone. Right.
And that interest brings about the political will to find the truth.
Right. Because they're going to hold hearings, how are the Democrats going to respond?
I don't know what you do. I don't know what questions do you ask? What angle do you take? I can see some of them saying, "Oh well, shouldn't we be moving on with the business up today because it gets better?" You do that, and right away, the GOP sends it right back to, well, no, because we are dealing with today, if the actions of Biden are still in play, if anything that he did as president is still governing the lives of people, then we have to find out if he actually did it.
Right. And it was not his executive order.
Right.
He did not sign that.
Right.
And
all
it does
of this
affect
has
you
to be
today.
known.
You can't win this one.
No,
politically or in any substantial way.
I don't see any way they can win it.
866-90 Red Eye.
This morning's USDA Farm Report is brought to you by House Products. Tested, trusted, guaranteed since 1920.
A combination of weather factors should come together this week.
Kind of a complex situation. We've got elements coming in from Canada, elements coming in from the eastern Pacific, all generating a rather active weather maker that will be drifting eastward over the next few days.
And USDA meteorologist Brad Rippey says in terms of what this system might bring,
we can expect anywhere from 1 to 3 inches of rain over the next several days by the end of the week from the central and southern Great Plains through the Ohio Valley and into the northeast.
More precipitation is expected from a second storm system entering the southern plains, moving eastward.
Kind of focused on Oklahoma and perhaps into portions of neighboring states. I would not be surprised to see some of those rainfall totals by the end of the week getting up in the 2 to 6 inch range there, and that could lead to some flash flooding. Also the potential for some severe thunderstorms as this cold front very slowly slides its way through the southern and central plains and the mid-south over the next several days.
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
This report brought to you by Cenex Fuels and Lubes.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Well, Trump went after Rand Paul yesterday.
Yeah, it was interesting because I was looking to see, there was one post or a couple of stories about what Trump responded to in terms of the bill, the big, beautiful bill. And I thought, well, but that story doesn't include like name calling or anything else. But Rand votes no on everything. This is part of his post from Truth Social. And I found this at Newsmax. But never has any practical or constructive ideas. His ideas are actually crazy. And then in parentheses, losers, with an exclamation point. The people of Kentucky can't stand him. And that's President Trump on Truth Social. So I get from that Rand Paul is a no. He's talked about the whole debt ceiling. That's the problem he has.
Yes.
So the still hopeful side of me says, no, he's right. We need to revisit the debt ceiling in every few months.
But
we're never going to not raise it. They're always going to raise it. It's going to be the, I vote to raise it. They're not going to not raise it.
Well, I guess the point from Rand Paul would be if you have to raise it every 3 months, then at least we're talking about it. But you're making the point, which is a very solid point, that it doesn't matter because you're going to hear, raise it.
Yeah, it's which, again, is the conversation is. And then I think to myself, well, if you're having the conversation every few months, it's going to start to sound repetitive and mundane, right? If people hear it every 3 months, oh, here we go again. Okay, fine. But they're going to raise it. And you'll hear, and even the headlines about we could go into default will start to go away because we're going to raise it. It's because effectively there really isn't a debt ceiling because there's no will to draw down the debt, to reduce the debt. So why put a ceiling on it? You're going to keep raising that ceiling. Eliminate the ceiling. But, again, practically, you can't get that done either. So we'll see where it goes with Rand Paul, I guess.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Well, you had you had Elon Musk yesterday go after the BBB, the big beautiful bill, and so did Rand Paul. The president really going after Rand Paul twice yesterday. One was more nice than the second one, which said his ideas are crazy and losers. But let's play Rand Paul's response when the first True Social message came out about Rand Paul from the president concerning that budget bill. Here's Rand Paul here on Fox News.
One of the senators who opposed this spending bill was called out by President Trump in a post on Truth Social. The president wrote, Rand Paul has very little understanding of the big, beautiful bill, especially the tremendous growth that is coming. He loves voting no on everything. He thinks it's good politics, but it's not. The big, beautiful bill is a big winner. So now let's hear from the senator himself. Joining me now is Kentucky Senator Rand Paul. Senator, thanks for being with me here today. First, I'd love to just get your response to the president.
Well, I'm guessing that when I voted no on both impeachments that the president wasn't happy with me loving to vote no. I'm guessing when I voted yes for most every member of his cabinet except for one, he probably wasn't unhappy with that either. What I would say is we have a disagreement, and we can still be friends, and I've told him this too. We can still be friends and have a disagreement. But to put things in perspective, the bill increases spending for the military and for border over $300 billion. The DOGE cuts, which aren't in this bill, were about $200 billion. So this bill actually increases in the first couple of years spending more than all the DOGE cuts combined. Now we're going to do $9 billion. That's very small. It's a rounding error. I'm for it. I think Elon's done a great job. $9 billion is a pittance, but I'm for it. I absolutely am for cutting the $9 billion. But I fear, I fear we might not have the votes to cut the $9 billion. If we don't, I suggest people grab their pitchforks, figuratively, and march on Washington. If Republicans cannot cut $9 billion, we've got a problem with Republicans.
If you don't have the votes for $9 billion, we've got a real problem because we're talking about much bigger problems and bigger numbers. On that note, I want to get you to address the two things we just heard from OMB Director Russ Vought, and one made by the president. First of all, they argue the big, beautiful bill puts in place growth measures that you're not accounting for. I've been around this game for a while. You have as well. I do know that growth is something that every administration counts on to offset their spending. But do you not think the president has a point with deregulation and tax cuts that we could see real growth that actually helps not jack up the deficit as is accounted for?
I actually do, and this is where I think the president and I are talking past each other. I accept the growth arguments. I actually accept that cutting taxes can grow revenue. I believe it happened under Reagan. I believe it happened under the first Trump term, and I supported the tax cuts in the first term. I still support them. I support making them permanent, and I do believe they will bring in more revenue than the CBO projects. My objection to the bill isn't about the tax cuts, and it isn't about those calculations. My objection to the bill is they're going to raise the debt ceiling more than they ever have, $5 trillion, and that this will be the largest increase in the debt ceiling ever. And if the Republicans all vote for it, the Republicans will own the debt. They will lose their high moral ground. We will no longer be the party that can say, look at the Democrats. They're the ones, foisting the debt on our country. We're drowning in a sea of debt caused by Democrats, which has largely been true. But I think now if they vote for this, so if they separate out the debt ceiling, I could be for the bill.
There you go. I have no idea where he comes up with $200 billion for DOGE cuts because I've not heard that number. Have you?
No.
I heard the number was closer to $100 billion in DOGE cuts. But if it's been updated, well, then I'm happy.
Yeah, sure.
But when you here, I guess here's a question that I have because the president said his ideas are crazy and called him a loser. In the second one, it was almost as if he thought, I was too nice in the first one. Let me blast him in the second.
Yeah.
When I was
he called his ideas losers.
Right, losers.
Yeah,
right. Well, he said crazy. He goes losers, but
Yeah, his ideas are actually crazy losers.
okay.
Yeah,
All right.
referring to the ideas. Because I was still looking for the name calling directly at Rand Paul.
when I was looking, and I did a quick search of all the surrogates, the ones that are I call always Trumpers, no matter what he says, no matter what's conservative or not. There,
right?
And what I saw was not that. I did not see universal support for the president against Rand Paul. I don't know if it's because the whole tweet came out from the X post came out from Elon Musk that just blasted the bill. And, you and I said, look, nobody's pure in this thing at all, not even Elon Musk. And, we pointed out how the Wall Street Journal said, look, Elon Musk saying it's just way too, pork laden, but he wants his own pork. And he did the Democrat thing of looking at the normal tax breaks that all companies get, including oil companies, and tried to make the impression, Elon Musk did, that those were special tax breaks that only oil and natural gas companies were talking about. And he's upset that the EV solar mandates the solar subsidies, which are tax credits, which is cash given to you, he's trying to make a moral equivalency there. And it's like he's just trying to protect his own pork while saying pork is wrong, and you can't do that. And so, but I look at it, and there really was nothing at Elon Musk. We look at the attacks of the president, for example, on Chip Roy. Didn't work.
Yeah, right.
They're less effective now. There is more. I'm not saying it's going to get anywhere, but there's more discussion on the debt and more if you don't do something, you're going to be held accountable for it. You're the ones that are making it so Republicans will have the moral equivalency of Democrats, which means nobody wants to cut.
Right.
There is no moral high ground, the points being made, if this budget passes. Now, there's this great discussion whether the CBO is underestimating growth, and I think it was, 2.6 they were looking at? Well, if the administration's talking about 3% growth for the next 10 years, we haven't had 3% growth over the last 20 years.
Right. Yep.
I think the average growth for the last 20 years is like 2.3%. So you have two things here. Everybody talks about the fact that, the CBO underestimates what growth will be. Well, I've seen every single presidential administration overstate what growth is going to be in order for their budgets to match. So it's somewhere normally in between.
Yeah, and again, that's where, I look at it and on the scoring, it's kind of, quite honestly, it's when Rand Paul is saying, look, lowering taxes can increase the revenue. Yeah, but let's finish that sentence, Senator Paul. Because then with greater revenue comes greater responsibility? No, greater spending. And that revenue becomes the permission structure.
God, I hate that.
It really does for the GOP or the Democrats. But that's the problem, is that there's going to be increased spending. And you may say, well, but it's better to do it when you have more revenue coming in. You got to control the spending. You've got to control. It's like, well, we're going further into debt, but I'm going to get a little more money. Not enough to pay the debt, but a little more money coming in. It's until you control the spending, you're not. It's going to be insane. It's going to be, the point where we reach that threshold, not being able to service the interest on the debt. And then programs just go away at some point.
Well, the one thing that's talked about, too, because the administration is banking on 3% growth. That's what they've said. Well, we haven't had the average growth, like I said, over the last 20 years in this country, 25 years, has roughly been 2.3%.
Right.
So the CBO is saying 2.6, administration's saying 3. And nobody's talking about what interest rates are going to be.
Right.
Because what our interest rate's going to be is basically what the interest on the debt's going to be, which is going to continue to grow and grow and grow. Mm-hmm. And so that's the other challenge that you face. So what numbers are right? We don't know until after we get there.
Right. Yep. And the political game is to do what? To appease my constituents today. Well, all of this is about borrowing for the future in a situation where, again, the future never really exists. It's always down the road, politically, especially because you're not going to be there. You're not going to be around to answer it. And if you are still on Capitol Hill, years when we have to, kick the can again, they'll do exactly that. They'll kick the can and go, oh, well, we need to solve this for right now. The long-term solution is hard, and nobody wants to do it. Nobody wants to because things are great today. Look, the kitchen's on fire, but I'm in the bedroom.
The other thing that I don't know how you take it into consideration because you don't know is this is really when you put together, this entire long-term budget, we don't know what the tariff situation is going to be 30 days from now.
Right.
Right now, we're in a trade war. It's not as bad as it could be. It's not as good as it could be, but nobody has any idea what's going to happen down the road. Mm-hmm. Remember, they were talking about what? How many, they were talking $800 billion, I think, they could get in tariffs. Right now, we would be, from the first 2 months, roughly around $200 to $300 billion in tariffs, which means if you were expecting $800 billion, economic growth is not what you expect it to be already, right?
Right.
I mean, there's no other way to look at it.
Mm-hmm.
And so how are the tariffs going to affect economic growth, which, again, has a direct correlation of whether we're going to have 2.3% growth, 2.6% growth, or 3% growth.
Right.
And that's a big unknown because we don't know if it's going to continue or not.
Right.
So how do you even figure that out in a budget? You can't. It's impossible.
You can't. Which is how they get away with it. By projecting this growth that isn't realistic quite too often. In fact, most often.
Well, remember, for the growth to be realistic, it would be, as they stated, which we stated would be what they would get. Mm-hmm. In fact, wasn't it amazing how close the numbers were from the administration to what we projected early on?
Just throwing a dart at the wall. And it's like, okay.
We said, well, we just didn't throw a dart. I mean, we actually
from doing it for so long.
But we actually looked at the figures and what the imports are to the country and what the tariffs would roughly be, and we came up
on that. You're
right, because the 700-800 billion means people are still buying stuff, which is still economic growth.
Right.
So you're expecting a certain purchasing power from the retail sector, and if you're 1/3 of that at this point, well, then your economic growth projections on the other end, how can they be accurate if you're missing it on this end?
Because what you can't account for is the behavioral change of the consumer, and how that will change. And while you can say, well, it will change, that part is predictable, but you don't know exactly how. So that way, you can't score it. There's no way to score it. You won't know, as you said earlier, until it's already done.
866-90-RED-EYE.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Well, they've got a few weeks. I mean, they want to get it done by July 4th. I mean, so
roughly a month.
You've got a month.
Yeah.
I don't know where it's going to go. As I told you yesterday when I saw Thune say, well, the Elon Musk thing, fine, we're going to do what we're going to do, and we're going to move this thing through quickly, and we don't believe there's going to be, many changes to it at all. And then you get other senators saying, no, we got to have some cuts here.
Yeah.
We've got to have cuts, and, whether they have, the votes or not. But I would probably think that since the public, even Republicans, are not demanding cuts, there are a few of them, and you got people like us and other conservatives that are saying, no, you really, if you want to do something, if you don't do it now, we're never going to do it.
Right.
Besides that, there really isn't a call even from Republicans to cut the budget at all.
Not loud at all.
Yeah.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.